As we get closer to the NBA trade deadline, NBA trade rumors are continuing to heat up. The Knicks have been linked to several big names, and in today's video, we're going to talk about Cameron Reddish as a potential trade target. According to Shams of The Athletic, rival teams have been expressing interest in Cameron Reddish and believe he could be available for a first-round pick. The Knicks own a surplus of future first-rounders. Not only do they own all of their own first-round picks, but they also own a protected Charlotte pick this year and the Mavericks pick next year. So acquiring Reddish looks like it could be a realistic possibility. I'll briefly give some context on the Cam Reddish situation in Atlanta, and then I'll go over the pros and cons of a potential Cameron Reddish trade. Cameron Reddish at one point was projected to be a top 5 draft pick. He played on that hyped up Duke team with Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, but unfortunately, he was disappointing in his 1 year at Duke. He averaged just 13 points per game that year on 39% shooting. But despite the down year at Duke, teams were still high on Reddish as he was very athletic and had good measurables at 6'8" with a 7'1" wingspan. Because of those physical tools, he was often compared to Paul George during the draft process. The Hawks took Reddish with the 10th pick of the 2019 NBA draft, and his shooting struggles continued as he only averaged 10 points per game on 38% shooting in his rookie season. Reddish started off his second year playing much better, but injuries ruined what could have been a second-year leap as he only played 28 games last year. This season, the Hawks were looking for Reddish to finally have that breakout season, but he's been fairly inconsistent and he's playing a career-low 22 minutes a game this year. As a result, Cameron Reddish is on the trade block. So now let's look at the pros and cons of a Cameron Reddish trade. One pro is that it looks like the Knicks can get him for fairly cheap. Since Cameron Reddish appears to be available for just a first-round pick, this means the Knicks could probably get Cam for a trade offer where they send Kevin Knox and either Charlotte's pick this year or the Mavericks pick next year. The Knicks already have a handful of prospects that need playing time, and with Thibodeau's reluctance to play first-year players, it could make sense to move a pick to get a good young player like Reddish. The next pro I'm going to talk about is Cam's defense. Reddish has very good physical tools, and he's athletic and plays with a high motor on the defensive end. Because of that, he's an excellent defender both as a man-to-man defender and an off-ball defender. On the ball, Reddish is a pest, and thanks to his size and quickness, he can guard small, fast players, but also switch on to bigger players. And off the ball, he's great at playing the passing lanes for steals and deflections. If you've been watching the Knicks this year, you know how badly the Knicks need defense on the wing. After ranking 4th in defensive efficiency last year, the Knicks ranked 19th in defensive efficiency this year. Under Thibodeau's coaching, Reddish could possibly turn into an elite defender. It becomes someone that the Knicks could use to lock up the other team's best player for years to come. The next pro we'll talk about is offensive upside. While Reddish has yet to be consistent, he's flashed the ability to create off the bounce. He could put the ball on the floor and take it all the way to the rim, or create his own shot off the dribble, and he's also a decent passer. This is the reason Reddish was taken so high in the draft, because teams thought he had the tools to become a future all-star. Even if Reddish never reaches that potential on the Knicks, he could still be a very good starter because he defends well, he could create, and he's a good three-point shooter as he's knocking down 38% of his threes this season. The last pro we'll discuss with Reddish is that he could be a part of the Knicks rebuild. At just 22 years old, Reddish is barely scratching the surface of his potential, and he fits the timeline of the other young players on the New York Knicks. If the Knicks decide to embrace a youth movement this season, he could definitely be a huge part of it. In terms of cons, the main flaw of Reddish is his inconsistent scoring. Some nights he scores 20 on efficient shooting and looks like a budding star, and then other nights he has a horrible shooting night and barely scores at all. On one hand, this could just be growing pains, and on another hand, Reddish may never reach his all-star potential because of his inconsistencies. But that's about it for cons, because Reddish still does many things pretty well. For the Knicks, a Reddish trade could be a savvy, low-risk, high-reward move. Losing Kevin Knox in a late first wouldn't hurt too much, and if Reddish breaks out, this trade would look like a steal. Similar to when the Nets traded for D'Angelo Russell for cheap, and he went on to have a breakout season and lead the Nets to the playoffs. Anyway guys, that's going to be the end of the video. Now that Cam Reddish is available, do you want to see the Knicks trade for him? Tell me in the comments. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed this and want to see more good content just like it. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.